Every day, millions of people eat a Ferrero product without giving the company a second thought. They spread Nutella onto toast, unwrap a Ferrero Rocher at Christmas, pop a Tic Tac into their mouth, or watch a child excitedly crack open a Kinder Surprise egg. The products are famous. The family behind them isn't. Unlike the Rockefellers, the Waltons, or even the Mars family, the Ferreros built one of the world's largest private fortunes, almost entirely out of the public eye. They rarely gave interviews, avoided celebrity, and never tried to become the face of their business. Instead, they let their products speak for themselves. That decision turned them into one of the wealthiest and most mysterious families in Europe. Their story begins in the aftermath of the Second World War. Italy was exhausted, cities had been bombed, food was scarce, and businesses were fighting simply to survive. For chocolate makers, the future looked especially bleak. Cocoa was expensive, difficult to import, and almost impossible for small bakeries to buy in large quantities. Many simply closed their doors. One man refused to. His name was Pietro Ferrero. Pietro wasn't a wealthy businessman or a factory owner. He was a pastry maker from the small town of Alba in northern Italy, and he believed that every problem had a solution if you were willing to think differently. Instead of asking where he could find more cocoa, he asked a far better question. What could replace it? The answer was growing all around him. The countryside surrounding Alba produced some of the finest hazelnuts in Europe. They were local, plentiful, and affordable. Everything cocoa was not. While other confectioners saw a shortage, Pietro saw an opportunity. He began experimenting, blending roasted hazelnuts with sugar and a small amount of cocoa to create something completely new. It wasn't meant to replace chocolate. It was designed to give ordinary families an affordable treat during difficult times. After months of trial and error, Pietro finally perfected his recipe. He called it giandujote. Unlike a chocolate bar, it was sold as a solid loaf that customers sliced at home and spread onto bread. It was simple, inexpensive, and unlike anything else on the market. The response was immediate. Customers loved it. Orders poured in. What had started as one baker's solution to a shortage quickly became one of the most talked about sweets in northern Italy. Pietro's tiny bakery suddenly found itself struggling to keep up with demand, and for the first time, the Ferrero name began spreading far beyond Alba. It should have been the beginning of a long and successful career. Instead, it became the beginning of a family tragedy. Determined to meet demand, Pietro worked relentlessly. He spent long days in the bakery, constantly refining recipes and overseeing production himself. Success had finally arrived, but so had exhaustion. Then, in 1949, just as the business was beginning to flourish, Pietro suffered a fatal heart attack. He was only 50 years old. The man who had created Ferrero's first great success would never see Nutella. He would never see Kinder. He would never see Ferrero Rocher. He never knew that the small bakery he built would one day become one of the largest confectionery companies in the world. His death could easily have ended everything. Many family businesses don't survive losing their founder. Without the person whose vision built the company, momentum disappears, and competitors quickly move in. Ferrero stood on the edge of becoming another forgotten post-war business. But inside the factory was a quiet young man who had been paying attention to everything his father had done. His name was Michel Ferrero, and the decisions he was about to make wouldn't just save the family business. They would change breakfast tables around the world forever. When Pietro Ferrero died in 1949, the future of the family business suddenly rested on the shoulders of his young son, Michel. Unlike his father, Michel wasn't known for bold speeches or a larger-than-life personality. He was quiet, thoughtful, and endlessly curious. He believed that success didn't come from making more products. It came from making better ones. Instead of rushing to expand, Michel spent years studying what customers actually wanted. He visited shops, listened to feedback, and constantly searched for ways to improve his father's original recipe. If something could taste better, spread more smoothly, or stay fresher for longer, he wanted to know how. By the late 1950s, the original giandujote had evolved into a creamier spread called supercrema. It was becoming increasingly popular across Italy, but Michel believed it still had untapped potential. Then, in 1964, an unexpected problem created an even bigger opportunity. Italian authorities objected to the name super crema, arguing that words like super could exaggerate a product's qualities. Rather than fight the decision, Michel simply renamed it. He combined the English word nut with the Italian ending ella, Nutella. It was short, memorable, and easy to pronounce in almost any language. No one realized it at the time, but one of the world's most recognizable food brands had just been born. Nutella quickly became a sensation. Families loved its smooth texture, rich flavor, and affordable price. What had begun as a wartime solution to a cocoa shortage was now appearing on breakfast tables across Europe. Most business owners would have been satisfied with one iconic product. Michel was just getting started. Nutella's success gave Michel Ferrero something many business owners dream of: freedom. He no longer had to worry about keeping the company alive from one month to the next. Instead, he could focus on something far more difficult: building a business that would still matter decades into the future. Unlike many of his competitors, Michel never believed that advertising alone created great brands. He believed the product itself had to do the hard work. If families genuinely loved what they bought, they would come back again and again, and they would introduce it to the next generation without needing to be persuaded. It was an idea that shaped every decision he made. Employees often spoke about Michel's extraordinary attention to detail. New recipes were tested repeatedly before reaching supermarket shelves, and products were only launched when he was completely satisfied that they offered something different from everything else on the market. He also believed that every Ferrero product should have its own identity. Rather than allowing one product to compete with another, each one was designed for a different moment in people's lives. One for breakfast, one for children, one for fresh breath, one for celebrations. It was a surprisingly simple strategy, but it proved incredibly effective. Instead of relying on a single bestseller, Ferrero quietly built a collection of brands that became traditions in their own right. Perhaps that's why Ferrero has survived, while so many famous confectionery companies have disappeared or been absorbed into larger corporations. The family never chased every opportunity. They simply focused on doing a handful of things exceptionally well. And that philosophy would soon produce another global success, one that children around the world still recognize the moment they peel back its silver foil. In 1969, Ferrero launched Tic Tac. The tiny mint came in a clear plastic box with a distinctive flip-top lid, making it instantly recognizable. It was simple, practical, and unlike anything sold by its competitors. Just 5 years later came another breakthrough: Kinder Surprise. Michel believed children should enjoy more than just the chocolate. By hiding a small toy inside every egg, Ferrero transformed a simple treat into an experience. For millions of children, opening the yellow capsule became just as exciting as eating the chocolate itself. Then, during the early 1980s, Ferrero introduced a product aimed at adults rather than children: Ferrero Rocher. Wrapped in gold foil and presented in elegant boxes, it became the chocolate people brought to dinner parties, gave as Christmas presents, and shared during special occasions. It wasn't simply sold as confectionery, it was sold as a celebration. By now, Ferrero had achieved something few companies ever manage. Breakfast belonged to Nutella, childhood belonged to Kinder, fresh breath belonged to Tic Tac, celebrations belonged to Ferrero Rocher. The company was expanding across Europe at an astonishing pace, and Michel had become one of Italy's most successful businessmen. Yet very few people even knew what he looked like. While other business leaders appeared on television and magazine covers, Michel stayed almost completely out of sight. He believed customers should remember the products, not the people behind them. It was an unusual philosophy, but it worked. As Ferrero quietly grew into a global empire, another generation of the family was preparing to take over. Everything seemed perfectly planned. History, however, had other ideas. By the early 2000s, Ferrero had become one of the biggest confectionery companies in the world. What had started as a small family bakery in Alba was now a global business, employing tens of thousands of people. Nutella had become a breakfast staple in homes across Europe. Kinder was delighting children around the world. and Ferrero Rocher had become one of the most recognizable chocolates ever created. For Michel Ferrero, it must have felt as though his father's dream had finally been realized. But the Ferrero story had always been shaped by triumph and tragedy. In 2011, the family suffered another devastating loss. Michel's eldest son, Pietro Ferrero, was in South Africa on business when he collapsed while out cycling. Despite receiving medical attention, he died suddenly at just 47 years old. For the family, the similarities were impossible to ignore. More than 60 years earlier, Pietro's grandfather, the company's founder, had also died suddenly while building the business. Twice, the Ferrero family had lost the man expected to lead the company into the future. Many wondered whether the business could survive another tragedy. Once again, the responsibility fell to a single member of the family, Giovanni Ferrero. Like his father before him, Giovanni wasn't interested in becoming a celebrity businessman. He quietly took control of the company and continued the philosophy that had guided Ferrero for decades. Think long-term, protect quality, and never stop improving. Under Giovanni's leadership, Ferrero didn't stand still. It grew. The company expanded into new markets and strengthened its position by acquiring several famous confectionery brands, including Ferrara Candy Company and Nestlé's American confectionery business. Suddenly, names like Butterfinger, Baby Ruth, and Crunch joined the Ferrero portfolio. It was a remarkable moment. The family, who had once struggled to buy enough cocoa, were now purchasing some of the biggest chocolate brands in the United States. Then, in 2015, Michel Ferrero passed away at the age of 89. Tributes came from around the world. Business leaders praised his vision. Employees remembered his humility. Customers remembered the products that had become part of their childhood. Unlike so many famous entrepreneurs, Michel never chased recognition. He wasn't interested in building his own image. He spent his life building products that people genuinely loved. Perhaps that's why the Ferrero story feels so different. This isn't the story of a billionaire showing off his success. It's the story of 3 generations quietly solving problems. Pietro solved a cocoa shortage. Michel transformed a local business into a global brand. Giovanni ensured the company remained family-owned in a world where many famous businesses had been sold or broken apart. Today, Ferrero is one of the largest privately owned food companies on Earth. Yet it still carries the same family name that appeared above a small bakery in Alba almost 80 years ago. That may be the family's greatest achievement. Not Nutella, not Kinder, not Ferrero Rocher, but proving that a family business can survive war, sudden loss, changing generations, and fierce global competition without losing sight of the values it was built on. Every time someone twists open a jar of Nutella, unwraps a Ferrero Rocher, or hears the familiar click of a Tic Tac box, they're holding a small piece of that history. A history that began with one baker who refused to believe that difficult times meant giving up. Sometimes the greatest business empires don't begin with vast fortunes or powerful investors. Sometimes they begin with one simple question: what if there's another way? And for the Ferrero family, that single question changed the world. If you've enjoyed uncovering the hidden story behind one of the world's greatest family empires, don't forget to subscribe to Old Money Media. Every week we go beyond the logos, beyond the products, and beyond the headlines to uncover the families who quietly shaped the modern world. Because the greatest stories are never found on the label. They're found behind the family that built the empire. This has been Old Money Media. Don't forget to subscribe and write in the comments. Let us know what you think and what you would like us to cover next. Until next time, thank you for watching.